Form is emptiness, and emptiness is form. The body itself is emptiness, and emptiness itself is this body. This body is not separate from emptiness, and emptiness is not separate from this body. The same is true of all of our feelings, perceptions, thoughts, and the totality of our conscious experience from cradle to grave. All phenomena bear the mark of emptiness. Their true nature is a nature that lacks both birth and death, being and non-being. There is no sin, and there is no purity. There is nothing to be won, and nothing that can be lost along the way. That is why in emptiness, all things are united. For life and its extinction are not separate entities. Suffering, the causes of suffering, and suffering cessation, the path as well as the insight and the attainment gained by those who walk it are all themselves also not separate things. They are not two, they are not one. They are empty. Whoever sees this no longer has to attain anything. Those who truly practice and realize this insight that brings us all to life's other shore see no more obstacles in their mind. And because there are no more obstacles in their mind, they can overcome all fear, destroy all faulty perceptions, and realize final and perfect nirvana. Hey folks, so what the heck was that? For those of you who don't know me, I am Brenton Lengel. I blog on this channel about politics. I do a lot of live debates, talk about philosophy, art, and also Buddhism, because I am a Buddhist. And this is the third, I'm very excited about this one, this is the third in my series on Intro to Buddhist Philosophy. Now, I've done one on the concept of the 10 worlds, and one on like what exactly a Buddha is. And you don't have to have seen those to understand this one, but I would recommend, if you get a chance, do check them out, because they will add to your understanding in this. So if there's something in here and you're like, what the heck is he talking about? I have no idea. Go watch the other two. It will make sense. So who am I to be talking about Buddhism? So I am a practicing Buddhist. I'm not a monk or anything. I am very much a layperson. I am a Nichiren Buddhist, which is a Japanese sect, and I practice through Soka Gakkai International. I actually am a former young men's leader from Harlem. I am no longer, though, because I aged out. I am no longer a young man. You know, you can see the graying at the temples already. And I wanted to do this. I'm really excited to do this video because this, like the first two, they were really interesting, but there are aspects of them that someone can pick up in popular culture. Whereas this video is a very advanced concept in Buddhist philosophy. So this is a video on Śūnyatā, the void, or emptiness. And what was I just reading to you? So that little bit, that was a selective and edited series of quotations from the Heart Sutra, which is one of the core sutras of Mahayana Buddhism. It is not held as central by my sect as the Lotus Sutra, which is like the most important sutra for Nichiren Buddhists, but it is still an incredibly beautiful sutra, and one that I think spells things out in a very concise way if you understand Buddhism to a certain extent when you come into it. And it's also really just incredibly beautiful. So that's what I really wanted to open this video on. And if a lot of what I said didn't make sense, that's okay. Stick with it, because we're going to come back to it, and you are going to understand exactly what the sutra is going on about when it talks about form being emptiness and emptiness being form. So this is a very important video, not just for Buddhists. And keep in mind, what I'm doing here with this Intro to Buddhism series, I'm not trying to convert anyone. Religion is a very personal thing, and Buddhist philosophy, Buddhism is more of a philosophy than a religion, and Buddhist philosophy will be useful to you and your life and will make your life better, whether you actually become a Buddhist or not. This one in particular is really important because I think it cuts to the heart of a major sickness that we have going on in the West. Part of the inspiration for doing this was actually, there was a video by Sisyphus55, another channel that covers philosophy on YouTube. I'm a big fan. I actually really like, because they did a very nice short video on my favorite philosopher, Mr. Alan Watts. Alan Watts, if you're not familiar with him, you need to check him out, because Alan Watts is like the real deal as far as a public intellectual goes. I don't think I've ever encountered someone as intelligent and insightful as him. And like, seriously, like, if you're somebody who gets blown away by like Jordan Peterson or even like Noam Chomsky, yeah, neither one of them have anything on Alan Watts. He's probably like one of the only public intellectuals I have ever encountered that is worth a damn. And in fact, that's kind of one of the things that I wanted to get into with this. But this video is in part a response to the video from Sisyphus 55, which is, it was a Stanley Kubrick quote on existentialism. And it talked about essentially like one of the biggest problems in Western philosophy, which is the fact that since the fall of the church as the center of philosophical, political, and scientific life, there has been this void in the West that we've tried to fill a number of ways, and we have failed spectacularly. And a lot of philosophers have gone to try to take this on. Nietzsche in particular, and his whole philosophy of the Übermensch, and also his philosophy of not aestheticism, but aestheticism as in aesthetics, like living your life as a work of art. This was like an early, almost existentialist thing. And it's a philosophy that I have actually advanced in my own work. My play North to Maine directly quotes Nietzsche on this. And the thing is that a lot of Nietzsche's work is to deal with this problem of nihilism. But the problem here is not with nihilism itself. It's actually with Western ideology, and how Western thought has developed, because the Easterners have dealt with this issue. At least the Buddhists have. And I think the Taoists and the smarter Hindus as well have had very good ways to deal with this issue, and it's not simply through believing in religious fairy tales and supernatural happenings. So here's the deal. The big problem, of course, is life's inherent meaninglessness, and that without God, because a lot of people thought in the West, because we are a technological culture that makes things, we thought of ourselves and our bodies as a kind of technology. That we were created first by the gods, by Prometheus, and then later, when the Greek religion was overtaken by Christianity, by God for a specific purpose. And if we fulfill this purpose, we get to go to the Elysian fields, or heaven. So in a way, it's like we're a toy that God built. Or a robot or something, and he loves us, and we need to just fulfill our function so that we can get this supposed eternal reward. Now, once the idea this idea of this all-knowing, all-powerful, all-loving God became too hard to believe for most people, it crumbled. And suddenly people are left with this gaping chasm when they realize, oh my God, I'm going to die. And everything that I've cared about and built, I'm going to lose it all. I'm going to lose everyone that I care about. I'm going to lose everything that I've done, and life is just this quick trip between the cradle and the crematorium. And this became like kind of a key feature and a major problem in sort of the idea of kind of the fully automatic universe. And you will often hear people say stuff like, we live in an indifferent universe. We're so much like bacteria on a rock before like the vastness of space and the galaxy and reality and everything. And a human life is just like such a tiny blink of time compared to the rest of time. And this rightly freaks people out. And they can't deal with it. And, there have been attempts to deal with it through existentialism and through absurdism. But the thing is that this has actually already been dealt with. And it's been dealt with by the Buddhists with the concept of the void, Śūnyatā. Because buckle up, I'm going to argue that nihilism, the fact that nothing matters, is good, actually. And how can this actually be good? Well, the problem is there is a specific feature of human consciousness. And that's the feature that we like to group things. We like to take stuff and separate it so that we can understand and better navigate the world around us. So, for instance, and it doesn't match up with like actual objective reality, by the way, because humans and really all creatures on this planet, evolution does not favor organisms that experience reality as it is. Rather, evolution favors organisms that experience reality in a way that is most conducive to our survival and or reproduction. So you going and experiencing the world through your senses, through empiricism, I'm looking and I'm seeing what's in front of me and my brain is evaluating it. That's not reality. What it is it's more like the interface with a computer. The interface in the computer is not the computer. Your senses are not reality. Now, take a second with that, because that's a big idea, and it's not the way a lot of people think, but it is the truth. So how does this apply to Śūnyatā, the void? Well, to understand the void, most people, when they think of a void, they think of darkness, an empty, bottomless hole. And this is also very similar to how a lot of atheists think about death. Because if you don't believe in a God, you sort of think that death may be like being buried alive, where just they shut off the lights and you're just there to deal with it. This is ridiculous. In fact, death will definitely not be like being buried alive. Because the fact of the matter is that if you think of yourself as this single, isolated I that came into this world, some years ago, and we'll leave it in, just another few decades or so, if we're lucky. This I, this ghost in this body, and oftentimes people will think of themselves as their self, is not their body. And in fact, we get into this a lot with my philosophy with regard to ANCAPs, because they talk about self-ownership and how that concept doesn't even make any sense, because again, you do not own yourself, you are yourself. But that's not all you are. The fact is that emptiness is not a black void. It's not darkness, it's empty. The closest thing to understanding Śūnyatā that we can perceive, and Alan Watts suggested this, is emptiness, Śūnyatā, the void, is to you what the inside of your head and the back of your head looks to your own eyes. So you strain, you try to look around. There's not blackness back here. There's not anything. You cannot perceive it. Now, obviously, we know that I got a brain in here and I got a skull and hair and all that stuff, but I can't see it. I can't experience it. To me, it is empty. And emptiness is not that exactly, but that's a good way to understand it. Emptiness is also empty space, because the thing is that nothing can actually exist if there is an emptiness for it to occupy. Just the same way that if I filled this room up with boxes, I couldn't come in here and do anything because it would already be full. And so right there, that's going to let you on that there is something going on that we don't notice. And that is the fact that the environment and the self are not actually two separate things. In fact, the environment and the self are the same thing because they require each to exist. As far as if I did not exist, the environment might as well not exist. If there's no one to experience it if there's no consciousness to experience it, then even if there is an objective reality, it doesn't matter. And similarly, consciousness cannot inhabit simply a body that's not in anything. I'm not out floating in space. And even if I was out floating in space, that would still be an environment. But that environment needs nothing to occupy. Because again, and that's another big thing, like the Buddhists will say, like, you can't hammer a nail into nothingness, but nothingness is there. And that is why the concept of Śūnyatā is the concept of the void, but it's also likened more to the sky. The sky is nothing, it's air, but it contains within it all things. It contains birds and, and weather and lightning and rain and everything that's walking on the earth, because there is no hard division between like the air around us and the sky. It's really all the same. So similarly, nothingness is also a feature of our bodies, because, yeah, I seem very solid right here, but if you go down to the atoms that make up my hand, that make up the cells that make up my hand, well, we know that in atoms there is more empty space than there is stuff, electrons, neutrons, whatever. So really, I'm talking to you now and I appear solid to you, but actually I'm like a big cloud, essentially. I'm a cloud of a person. And the thing is that those atoms and those electrons, that electron cloud, essentially, and like we know about this with like the uncertainty principle, they're like, you go small enough, you can't even pin down exactly where those electrons are until they are observed. They're blinking essentially in and out of reality. So what seems to be very substantial and solid and real actually isn't. It is empty. In much the same way that the Buddha seems like, but boom, empty. And all gods are empty, and all people are empty, and all of reality is empty. And in its emptiness, it is unified. The emptiness is not a negation of the form. It is not a negation of the stuff. The stuff can't exist without emptiness. The emptiness can't or might as well not exist without the stuff. This term is dependently originate, in much the same way that the top of a chessboard is dependently originate with its bottom. You can't touch the top of a chessboard to its own bottom. They are two and they are opposite, but they are also united and require one another. And this is what's really, really important to understand in the concept of non-duality. Because Westerners, we love to break things down into opposing forces. Marx loves to talk about, dialectical materialism and all of these clashing forces that give rise to the march of history. We love to find contradictions and tensions within reality so that we can exploit them for our technology. And it's gotten us like all the power and convenience like right at our fingertips, but at the same time it hasn't made us happy. And in fact, if anything, it's made us more miserable, because when you go into that technological thinking, when you let that machine into your mind, the mental machine, what it does is it isolates you. And it puts you down and what you are. And in the West, this seemed normal because, before, when we were children of God, well, that was a little too intense, because everything, we had this all-seeing eye looking down on us at all times. And, we had to play this game without a map. And if we made the wrong choice, we got tortured forever. We got set on fire. Essentially God is like a psychotic ex-girlfriend or something who's going to burn you if you don't love him enough. That's ridiculous. And we rightly rebelled against it in the West. But we went too far. And the fact that we went so far that we essentially slandered life and slandered humanity and who we actually are and what what purpose we serve in the universe. Because if we actually were here to serve God, that's actually pretty depressing. Like you see that in Rick and Morty. Like Rick, like his big, kind of almost catchphrase thing is like nothing matters, and that's why he acts like a jerk all the time. But you also saw the inverse of it, and it was a great joke where it's the little robot, and the robot goes up after Rick's built him to his creator. It's like, what is my purpose? And Rick says, you pass butter. And the robot's like, oh my God. Because the thing is that if we have this externally imposed purpose on ourselves, that's constraining. That's something that you would really bristle against. It's something that I definitely bristled against. Because if you're not happy in that purpose, it becomes a chain around your neck. But we don't seem to have a lot of fulfillment in purposelessness if we believe that we are this thing that was fluked into existence. And you see all these people. Are you fucking kidding me? Wait. I hit the streaming button instead of the recording. Oh, geez, that's great. I'm going to have to clip that out. I just realized that, so people are probably actually watching this right now. I thought I was recording. Well, that's fun. I will have to change the thing. So if anybody's been asking me questions and I haven't been responding, that's why. So anyway, I'm going to be adding to this there's going to be a symbol on the picture that goes with this. And it's actually this symbol. This is actually the symbol of Śūnyatā, the thing. This is from my karate retreat, the one where I got my black belt. And it's finding the mu. As in Mushin, as in no mind, which is the concept of Śūnyatā applied specifically to fighting. And what's so liberating about this, that we realize when it's taking me a second to get back into it because I didn't realize I was live at the moment. What you realize once like the ego starts to fall apart, because again, what I said was that humans are not creatures that necessarily are designed to experience reality as it is. We're designed to experience reality in a way that is most conducive to our survival and reproduction. And that's really like the purpose of the ego, the idea that you are just this one person within this bag of skin. So the ego essentially is like a troubleshooter, like a radar. And if you identify yourself too much with your troubleshooter, obviously you identify yourself in like a set of perpetual anxiety, and you constantly overestimate the danger around you and underestimate your own ability to deal with it. And this is one of the things that I learned in my 15-man kumite. So for those, I talk about martial arts a lot. Every time I bring it up, drink. Don't do that. You will die. But when I was fighting for my black belt at this particular karate retreat, I did find the mu. In the sense that, 3 fights in, I'm huffing and puffing. I don't know, I can do this. 6 fights in, I definitely can't do this. 10 fights in, what's my name again? 14 fights in, holy crap, I'm going to do it. And the thing is that once that ego breaks down, because it pushes you, like the purpose of the 15-man kumite in Kyokushin karate is to push the fighter beyond their limit, to where they know they absolutely cannot go on, yet they must. And in much the same way, the thing is that we know that when death comes for us as this individual ego, we cannot go on when this body dies. But the fact is yes, we do actually go on. So to go back to the poem from before, Form is emptiness, and emptiness is form. This body itself is emptiness, and emptiness itself is this body. This body is not separate from emptiness, and emptiness is not separate from this body. The same is true of all of our feelings, perceptions, thoughts, and the totality of our conscious experience from cradle to grave. All phenomenon bear the mark of emptiness. Their true nature is a nature that lacks both birth and death, being and non-being. There is no sin, and there is no purity. There is nothing to be won, and nothing that can be lost along the way. That is why in emptiness, all things are united. For life and its extinction are not separate entities. Suffering, the cause of suffering, and suffering cessation, the path itself, as well as the insight and attainment gained by those who walk it, are all themselves also not separate things. They are not two, they are not one, they are empty. Whoever can see this no longer has anything to attain. Those who truly practice and realize this insight that brings us all to life's other shore see no more obstacles in their mind, and because there are no more obstacles in their mind, they can overcome all fear, destroy all faulty perceptions, and realize final and perfect nirvana. Now, do we get what that poem is talking about? Do we get what the sutra is going for here? Because life and its extinction are not separate entities, and because of in emptiness, all things are united. Again, suffering, the cause of suffering, and suffering cessation, the path itself, and the insight and attainment gained by those who walk it, the Noble Eightfold Path, are all themselves also not separate things. They are not two, they are not one, they are empty. Samsara is nirvana. Whoever can see this no longer has to attain anything. Literally, once you understand this, and you know it, not just intellectually, but viscerally, what is there even to possibly obtain? You already have everything, because you are not just yourself. You don't end at your skin. You are literally everything. You are the dreaming Godhead of Brahman. You are the Buddha. You are the deep down stuff that there is, the Tao. Tat van Asi, that art thou, you're it. Because ultimately, everyone is I. Consciousness, by its very nature, is an individual experience, but time is not experience. And our scientific understanding of time is that it is not linear like we experience it. In fact, all times are happening at once. We are all of this process. We are the universe eyeing. And emptiness is the key uniting part of that process, even though our consciousness conspires to hide it from us and to make us think that we can have the crest of the wave without the trough. That life without death is something that we might actually want, or could even have. And this goes back, and I've read some of these other sutras here. The Thus Come One, this is from the Lotus Sutra. The Thus Come One, the Tangatha, that's the title for the Buddha, perceives the true aspect of the threefold world exactly as it is, the threefold world being this world. There is no ebb and flow of birth and death. There is no existing in this world and later entering extinction. It is neither substantial nor empty, neither consistent nor diverse. Nor is it what those who dwell in the threefold world perceive it to be. All such thing the Thus Come One sees clearly and without error. You get the Buddha right there telling you, this is it. Like, this is what he's been talking about. He's not just Shakyamuni Buddha. The Buddha as an entity, if we can call it an entity, it's really closer to life itself. It is the flux. It is all of our true nature. Our Buddha nature is something that predates the formation of our sun. It's something that's gone on as long as the universe has gone on, and probably longer, because I'm going to bet that there's other universes, because if this universe can come out of nothing and will eventually end, well, obviously something can come from nothing. Obviously, if it happened once, it can happen again. And again, I'm going to go to another Buddhist monk here. This is a poem that I want to end on so that you guys, again, understand what I'm getting at and why nothingness and nihilism is actually good. But before I read it, there's just one or two more things that I wanted to bring up. And the first thing is the idea that this is actually the best of all possible worlds. If you're really attached to yourself as an individual, this can seem bleak. But really, you aren't just yourself. You are everyone. You get to be all of the saints and all of the sinners, all of the heroes and all of the villains and everything in between. This is having your cake and eating it too. And the only thing that can cause you to suffer in life is taking it too seriously and getting sucked into the trap that is consciousness. You know? And the thing is that this experience of a satori, which is where a sudden enlightening experience where you no longer perceive yourself as just yourself, but actually as everything within the universe. This is something we've all actually already experienced. We just don't remember it. We knew it when we were babies. It's called the oceanic experience, and babies cannot perceive a difference between what they do and what happens to them. It's all the same process. So, really, like, you get these black-pilled people, you get these, angry teenagers and stuff, people that are overcome with the idea that they are going to die. Some of them even become fascists and become obsessed with protecting their nation or their race or their legacy. And all of that will crumble and die and change because the only universal constant is change. There is nothing that can be permanent in this reality. There's nothing that can be gripped onto, and that's great. Because when you can't grip or hold anything, when everything always changes, it's always new. And you get born again, and you get to experience all forms of life. Because really, as I said before, we're all God pretending it's not, because that's what you would do if you were God, and you could do anything that you wanted. Obviously, you'd get really bored and find a way to limit yourself. Let's see what I can do now. Let's play this game. Let's see what happens here. And so we come to this poem by Thich Nhat Hanh. I probably mangled that name. This body is not me. I am not limited by this body. I am life without boundaries. I have never been born, and I have never died. Look at the ocean and the sky filled with stars, manifestations of my wondrous true mind. Since before time, I have been free. Birth and death are only doors through which we pass, sacred thresholds on our journey. Birth and death are a game of hide and seek. So laugh with me. Hold my hand. Let us say goodbye to meet again soon. We meet today. We will meet again tomorrow. We will meet at the source every moment. We will meet each other in all forms of life. So thank you. That is the concept of Śūnyatā, the void. Thank you so much for coming by my YouTube channel. And